How is it possible that Cyberpunk's last secret has been discovered and yet it still remains unsolved? The remarkable quality of the game's deepest secret is that whenever we uncover a piece of it, it retains an elusive meaning just beyond our grasp. Each clue we find seems to deepen the mystery instead of resolving it, forcing us to question what we truly know about the game. Some other popular cyberpunk mysteries, like the identities of the Zen Master or Mr. Blue Eyes, have always kept players guessing, but none so completely as a final secret CD Projekt still hides from us. The infamous FF06B5, which still raises more questions than answers, even after all this time. But why? Why years after the game's release and countless updates, do the developers withhold a final resolution to their biggest secret? To understand this mystery and the layers beneath it, we're going to trace its strange evolution and examine how it has haunted the community, before finally uncovering the secret's true nature once and for all. What exactly is FF06B5? At first glance, we might be tempted to reduce it to a strange code carved onto a few statues scattered around Night City, a small curiosity that spiraled into a sprawling mystery. But that description, while technically correct, misses the essence of what makes the secret so remarkable. FF06 is not a fixed puzzle with a single solution, it's a mystery that has evolved alongside the game itself. With each new update from CD Projekt, the secret grew larger, stranger, and more elaborate. In the very beginning, when the game came out in 2020, all players had was a number carved into the statues, and that was it. The statues resembled Buddhist or Hindu iconography. Monks were meditating nearby, but beyond these details, there was little to go on. The mystery deepened only much later, in February 2022, when the 1.5 update arrived and the devs added mini statues in V's apartment, marked with the same enigmatic numbers. We can see already that the origin of FF06 was rather modest, but as the community around the mystery grew in 2021, thanks to a subreddit, a Discord, and countless emerging theories, the secret itself got bigger and more complex, hitting at its shifting, ever-evolving nature. The truth of the matter is that behind the scenes, the devs were paying attention to the conversations around the game and capitalizing on them. Their commitment was even more obvious toward the end of 2022 with the release of The Witcher 3's next-gen update, which contained an odd symbol tied to Cyberpunk's mystery. The lines inside the triangle were identical to those on the statue's belts, and the color magenta was significant because FF06 is a hexadecimal code that represents magenta. This late and small addition in The Witcher 3, 2 years after Cyberpunk's launch, was enough to set the Reddit world on fire, along with many new theories that helped cement FF06 as the game's biggest and most enduring mystery. So by late 2022, apart from a couple of additions from the devs, we still knew barely anything about FF06, which raises the question, why is it around that time that it became the #1 mystery to hunt down? Precisely because there wasn't much to it yet, so fans could spin theories and let their imagination run wild as they examined every inch of Night City. By dropping just a few more breadcrumbs over the first couple of years, the developers confirmed the presence and significance of the secret, its legitimacy, while at the same time revealing nothing concrete about it. But the simple confirmation from the devs that the secret existed and it was significant ended up being enough to make it far bigger than what it really was. In other words, FF06 began as an empty secret that CD Projekt nonetheless acknowledged as significant. This contradictory nature, empty yet important, is one of the key aspects of FF06. To understand it further, we can turn to Quest director Pavel Sasko, who explained in a recent interview that he asked his team to observe how players, streamers, and YouTubers reacted to the game and its hidden secrets.
I always tell my designers, watch your content being played by someone live. Watch YouTubers, watch streamers, and see, because you will see how they think.
This approach shows how attentive the devs are to player engagement. In this way, FF06 evolves alongside the community. It mirrors the Ouroboros metaphor. As a serpent eats its own tail, the secret is an eternal cycle of creation and response. Developers insert a secret, players theorize, and the devs expand it further. The community then continues the search, and the cycle never ends. This ongoing loop ensures that FF06 can never be fully solved, as it constantly evolves with each new update. Consider the 2.0 patch, for instance, which is the most significant addition to the game's deepest riddle. Along with the expansion Phantom Liberty, this update expanded FF06 massively with the inclusion of locations, minigames, cutscenes, and more to flesh out the secrets. In particular, the developers added a church in the middle of the Biotechnica farms, with servers, a laptop, and an arcade machine inside. The latter contains a game paying homage to Wolfenstein 3D, and specifically made for this secret. Without going into too many details, players have to play the arcade game, and after many convoluted steps involving staying in a room for some time, reaching the end of a tortuous maze and bypassing a final boss, they can finally go on to the next step of the FF06 riddle. This involves entering codes into the servers and finding a mattress in the Badlands. If we stand on it around 5:40 AM, a cutscene triggers and we experience an odd vision with a yellow glitching cube before being woken up by a stranger and unlocking a new vehicle named the Demiurge. Supposedly, the mystery is now over since we just reached the end of the content related to FF06, but that didn't stop the community, still hard at work deciphering the true meaning of the secret. While the new truck seems like a neat way to wrap things up and reward the player, we can't help but feel like something is missing, that there's more to the secret than what we got. Because the deeper we investigate, the more contradictory the information about FF06 becomes. Take the cube for example, which contains a QR code revealing a long message from the devs telling us to stop our search, that there's nothing more to see. But as soon as they say this, they also hint at how much more there is to find about the secret. Consider the beginning of the message, stating, "You've been looking long enough, you can stop now, it's over." Or is it? No, really, it is. One thing ends, another begins. Except nothing's beginning or ending. Each sentence that explains there's nothing more to see is paired with another contradicting it, making the whole message a giant paradox with no clear indication as to what we should believe. It gets even stranger a few sentences later, when we read that this isn't the first time we've met and it won't be the last, but for now, you can rest easy. It seems that the developers acknowledge we have reached the final step of the FF06 riddle, while simultaneously suggesting there's more to come. Without a doubt, this elusive message encapsulates CD Projekt's communication surrounding FF06, in that their goal is to make their secret a haunting one, with no final resolution in sight. In many ways, FF06 is a case example of what great secrets ought to be, unsolved mysteries that linger in our minds, and purposefully so. To truly understand FF06 and the developer's intention behind it, we need to understand a philosophical concept called hauntology. Broadly speaking, hauntology is a notion that the present is haunted by lost futures. For example, if someone receives a trinket from the husband before he goes to war and he never returns, that trinket would represent both the husband and the lost futures the couple could have shared. More precisely, the trinket is a present manifestation of something absent, in this case, the husband. This juxtaposition of presence and absence results in being haunted by a future which could have happened, but didn't. In Cyberpunk, this trinket is FF06, given how the secret and its in-game manifestation embody a presence that points at something bigger we can't have access to. Consider the stranger, whose name is Polyhister and who, after waking us up, disappears, leaving his clothes behind. This is no mere coincidence. The clothes we see lying on the ground point to an important mystery that's now gone. As usual, the moment something related to FF06 manifests itself, it vanishes just as quickly as it appeared. What's more, when we look at Polyhister's personal logs, the last entry ends on a very puzzling note. I understand now, but it's too late. Something ends. Will end? Has ended. Farewell. The juxtaposition of different temporalities indicates that the mystery surrounding FF06 both ended and didn't, trapped just like the character in a never-ending pursuit. And I mean this literally. The pursuit doesn't end, which is why the verb to end is used here in the present, past, and future. Notice how Polyhister casts doubt on the future by including the question, will end? Showing how he is, like us, haunted by a lost future he cannot grasp. Like him, we are still haunted by FF06, even years after the 2.0 update, years after having supposedly discovered the last clue. The reality is that all we truly have thus far is a trinket of an immense, convoluted secret. No matter how hard we examine every corner of Night City, we won't ever fully solve FF06, leaving us with nothing else to do but theorize about a future revelation that, undoubtedly, will be different from what we imagine it to be. Interestingly, the true nature of FF06 is summarized by Polyhister, who, in one of his personal logs discussing the hidden content within the arcade game, notes that what's in there is not an answer, but a clue. FF06 is nothing more than a clue toward an answer that remains absent to us, and as such goes on haunting us. We're haunted not just by FF06's identity, but by what it could become in the future. The fact that the developers keep adjusting the nature of the secret with each new update, while also hinting at more to come, makes FF06 a haunting secret, whose defining characteristic is to linger in the minds of players while never revealing itself. We know it exists, we know it manifests itself, and yet, just like a ghost, it doesn't completely show itself, leaving us bewildered by its elusive presence. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is inherently a bad thing. In truth, I think that CD Projekt is doing brilliant work in handling their deepest secrets, because for FF06 to remain as mysterious and compelling as it is, it must stay partly hidden and evolve just like our theories do. In many ways, this secret mirrors us, our desire for payoff, but also our inner wish to continue the search indefinitely. The joy we get from this doesn't come from the revelation FF06 could hide, but from the constant wandering and looking for clues. The search is what matters most, not the results, and I believe the people at CD Projekt understand this perfectly. In thinking about what the secret could become, about possible future revelations that never came to be, we cannot help but draw parallels with the game itself and its tantalizing promise that never fully delivered. Cyberpunk is notorious for being a game promising a lot and delivering little. Of course, that changed, and the game we have now is nothing short of phenomenal. But we must also acknowledge how it overpromised, how the game that came out back in 2020 was a shell of the game it was supposed to be. As a result, Cyberpunk, just like its most famous secret, haunts us with what it could have been, a game of infinite potential that we might still see realized in the future with its sequel. But the parallel between FF06 and the game goes further than that, especially with the Ouroboros metaphor. As a reminder, we can see the Ouroboros almost everywhere we look for clues about FF06. It appears on a junkyard laptop, in The Witcher 3 with a next-gen update, and even during the cutscene before Polyhistor wakes us up. I already mentioned the interconnectedness this symbol represents, but it also embodies a cycle of life, death, and rebirth, a cycle the game itself is deeply familiar with. Just like the Ouroboros, Cyberpunk and its secret both live through cycles of death and rebirth. The game itself was declared dead on arrival by many players back in 2020, buried under broken promises and technical issues, yet it has since been reborn through an endless number of great updates and patches. The same is true of FF06, which began as nothing more than a strange number on a statue and has since taken on an afterlife of its own, constantly resurrected by the developers and reshaped by the community. In that sense, FF06 is not just a secret within Cyberpunk, it's a mirror of the game's entire history. Every time we think it has ended, it returns in a new form. Every time the community declares it to be solved, it opens again, larger than before. This cyclical nature reveals something profound about how Cyberpunk relates to its players. The game is a living work, always in dialogue with its community, and FF06 embodies this more than anything else. It refuses finality, just as the game itself refused to remain in the state it was at launch. Instead, both are defined by their potential, the game haunted by what it was supposed to be, the secret haunted by what it might become. The promise of Cyberpunk and the promise of FF06 are inseparable. Both are ghosts of futures that never arrived, yet continue to shape how we play, speculate, and hope. The irony is that this unresolved quality is not a flaw, but the very thing that gives both the game and the secret their longevity. If Cyberpunk had shipped exactly as promised, without missing systems or broken features, it might have been received as a polished product, but a product that eventually settled into place. Instead, its incompleteness became the foundation of its myth, the same way FF06 contradictions are what make it unforgettable. Both are perpetually in the process of becoming. They live in a liminal state, not entirely past, not entirely present, never fully future. And this is why FF06 feels less like an Easter egg and more like a structural metaphor. It dramatizes the same instability, the same deferral that defines the entire game. Night City is a place of endless upgrades and finished bodies and half-lived lives. The game's last secret reflects that world by being equally unfinishable. Every revelation arrives with a shadow of absence, every answer paired with a contradiction. The Ouroboros is the image of Cyberpunk itself, looping endlessly between failure and redemption, secrecy and revelation, death and rebirth. Have you ever heard of Elden Ring's most puzzling lawsuit? In September 2024, someone sued From Software, claiming that they only played half of the game, and that the developers were purposefully hiding entire areas from players. The lawsuit may be silly, but it tells us something important. Studios like FromSoft and CD Projekt embody a new way of disseminating secrets within their games, even building a strong reputation around it. Their secrets are so elaborate, so well hidden, and worth the effort that anything seems possible now. Considering how Cyberpunk and Elden Ring both contain huge hidden areas and obtuse lore, we naturally reach a point where any theory might be possible, however unlikely it may be. Who could have thought Elden Ring hid an entire level beneath its open world, or that Cyberpunk had an entire game hidden in a church? The most fascinating aspect of FF06 is that it opens the door to so many wonderful possibilities and theories. By deliberately making its deepest secret open-ended, with no resolution in sight but more mysteries to discover, CD Projekt managed to make us play the game both when experiencing Night City, controller in hand, and outside of it, where we can't help but think about the game's mysteries during our day-to-day lives, eager to share our latest theory with the community. So yes, we are haunted by FF06, Cyberpunk's last secret, which has been unveiled and yet remains more mysterious than ever. We're haunted by it because, from the very beginning, the developers never missed a chance to satisfy our thirst for more, to deliver even when our expectations were unreasonable. We are haunted by FF06 because it's one of the best secrets a video game has ever had, and because the excitement we feel for it is shared by the very people who are behind it. In the end, FF06 is a secret in the purest sense of the term, that is, something that's not known or seen, and, even more importantly, something not meant to be known or seen. Yes, FF06 is a haunting secret because it's a true secret, the manner of which we can see in a poem by Robert Frost entitled The Secret Sits. We dance round in a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle and knows. Let's imagine that the secret here is FF06 and that the we represents us when we investigate Cyberpunk and its deepest secret. We look at it, we examine it, and all we can do is suppose what it means without ever fully understanding it. However, the secret sitting in the middle has access to things we don't, to a knowledge we can only guess at but never truly reach. This is what a good secret does. It makes us question something without giving us a clear answer. Since we can't truly know what FF06 means, all that's left to do is dance around it, which means making up theories, going in circles around a secret we can't fully uncover. The fact that we can never know the true meaning of FF06 may seem tragic, but it's in fact a very good thing. We may not be able to know the secret, but we can dance. Dancing represents an attitude that doesn't care about knowing the truth of the game and prefers, rather, to suppose, to try, to continue searching. That said, a question lingers. If the secret is inaccessible, why don't we just give up? At stake here is something similar to the famous saying, "It's a journey that matters, not the destination." The same goes for hunting down secrets. The truth behind FF06 doesn't really matter. What matters is how it excites us, how it stirs something in us, and how it makes us wonder. Notice how we are the ones dancing according to the poem, how there is something communal in the act of looking for a secret. That's how Cyberpunk remains alive, not just as a game, but as a shared pursuit. In seeking FF06, we are drawn into a dance we will never finish, circling a secret that always stays out of reach. We theorize, speculate, argue, and imagine, but the secret itself watches from the center, knowing what we can't. It reminds us that the thrill is not in the answer, but in the chase, in a communal heartbeat of players piecing together fragments of meaning. As such, Cyberpunk becomes more than pixels and code. It becomes a mirror, reflecting our curiosity, our obsession, our desire to reach beyond the visible. And FF06 is a perfect embodiment of that mirror. A ghost we chase, a puzzle that teases, a story that unfolds as much in our minds as in Night City. The secret endures, not in what it reveals, but in the way it keeps us coming back, together, ever reaching, ever haunted. In our relentless pursuit of FF06, Cyberpunk's most famous ghost will never fade away, and we, in turn, become ghosts ourselves, hunting the secret as much as it haunts us. Thank you for exploring Cyberpunk's last secret with me. If you enjoyed the journey, please consider subscribing, commenting, and liking the video. Until next time, let's keep searching.